Hello, my little CUNTs. This is See You Next Time. We're walking down a new track today, looking at whispered, autonomous, sensory meridian response, or ASMR. We're going to be reading Zen Koans to open up your mind from multiple directions. For those familiar with ASMR, I hope this floats your boat. For those who are new to the concept, rest assured that this is the finest example of ASMR in existence, matched only by future videos on this channel. Remember to like and subscribe, and please do comment to let me know what you think of this first ASMR video. Thank you. So get settled in and we'll kick off. Are you sitting comfortably? Good. Then we'll begin. A cup of tea. Nanin, a Japanese master during the Meiji era, received a university professor who came to inquire about Zen. Nanin served tea. He poured his visitor's cup full, and then kept on pouring. The professor watched the overflow until he no longer could restrain himself. It is over full, no more will go in. Like this cup, Nanin said, you are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup? Finding a diamond on a muddy road. Gyudo was the emperor's teacher of his time. Nevertheless, he used to travel alone as a wandering mendicant. Once, when he was on his way to Edo, the cultural and political center of the shogunate, he approached a little village named Takenaka. It was evening and a heavy rain was falling. Gyudo was thoroughly wet. His straw sandals were in pieces. At a farmhouse near the village, he noticed 4 or 5 pairs of sandals in the window and decided to buy some dry ones. The woman who offered him the sandals, seeing how wet he was, invited him in to remain for the night in her home. Gyudo accepted, thanking her. He entered and recited a sutra before the family shrine. He was then introduced to the woman's mother and to her children. Observing that the entire family was depressed, Gyudo asked what was wrong. My husband is a gambler and a drunkard, the housewife told him. When he happens to win, he drinks and becomes abusive. When he loses, he borrows money from others. Sometimes, when he becomes thoroughly drunk, he does not come home at all. What can I do? I will help him, said Gyudo. Here is some money. Get me a gallon of fine wine and something good to eat. Then you may retire. I will meditate before the shrine. When the man of the house returned about midnight, quite drunk, he bellowed, Hey, wife, I am home. Have you something for me to eat? I have something for you, said Gyudo. I happened to be caught in the rain and your wife kindly asked me to remain here for the night. In return, I have bought some wine and fish, so you might as well have them. The man was delighted. He drank the wine at once and laid himself down on the floor. Gyudo sat in meditation beside him. In the morning, when the husband awoke, he had forgotten about the previous night. Who are you? Where do you come from? He asked Gyudo, who was still meditating. I am Gyudo of Kyoto, and I am going on to Edo, replied the Zen master. The man was utterly ashamed. He apologized profusely to the teacher of his emperor. Gyudo smiled. Everything in this life is impermanent, he explained. Life is very brief. If you keep on gambling and drinking, you will have no time left to accomplish anything else, and you will cause your family to suffer too. The perception of the husband awoke as if from a dream. You are right, he declared. How can I ever repay you for this wonderful teaching? Let me see you off and carry your things a little way. If you wish, assented Gyudo. The two started out. After they had gone 3 miles, Gyudo told him to return. Just another 5 miles, he begged Gyudo. They continued on. You may return now, suggested Gyudo. After another 10 miles, the man replied. Return now, said Gyudo, when the 10 miles had passed. I am going to follow you all the rest of my life, declared the man. Modern Zen teachings in Japan spring from the lineage of a famous master who was the successor of Gyudo. His name was Munan, the man who never turned back. Meditation is the key to everything. Is that so? The Zen master, Hakuin, was praised by his neighbours as one living a pure life. A beautiful Japanese girl whose parents owned a food store lived near him. Suddenly, without any warning, her parents discovered she was with child. This made her parents angry. She would not confess who the man was, but after much harassment, at last named Hakuin. In great anger, the parent went to the master. Is that so? Was all he would say. After the child was born, it was brought to Hakuin. By this time, he had lost his reputation, which did not trouble him, but he took very good care of the child. He obtained milk from his neighbours and everything else he needed. A year later, the girl mother could stand it no longer. She told her parents the truth. The real father of the child was a young man who worked in the fish market. The mother and father of the girl at once went to Hakuin to ask forgiveness, to apologize at length, and to get the child back. Hakuin was willing. In yielding the child, all he said was, "Is that so?" Obedience. The Master Bankei's talks were attended not only by Zen students, but by persons of all ranks and sects. He never quoted sutras nor indulged in scholastic dissertations. Instead, his words were spoken directly from his heart to the hearts of his listeners. His large audience angered a priest of the Nichiren sect, because the adherents had left to hear about Zen. The self-centered Nichiren priest came to the temple, determined to have a debate with Bankei. "Hey, Zen teacher," he called out, "wait a minute. Whoever respects you will obey what you say, but a man like myself does not respect you. Can you make me obey you?" "Come up beside me and I will show you," said Bankei. Proudly, the priest pushed his way through the crowd to the teacher. Bankei smiled. "Come over to my left side." The priest obeyed. "No," said Bankei. "We may talk better if you are on the right side. Step over here." The priest proudly stepped over to the right. "You see," observed Bankei, "you are obeying me, and I think you are a very gentle person. Now sit down and listen. If you love, love openly." 20 monks and 1 nun, who was named Eshun, were practicing meditation with a certain Zen master. Eshun was very pretty. even though her head was shaved and her dress plain. Several monks secretly fell in love with her. One of them wrote her a love letter, insisting upon a private meeting. Eschen did not reply. The following day, the master gave a lecture to the group, and when it was over, Eschen arose. Addressing the one who had written to her, she said, "If you really love me so much, come and embrace me now." No loving kindness. There was an old woman in China who had supported a monk for over 20 years. She had built a little hut for him and fed him while he was meditating. Finally, she wondered just what progress he had made in all this time. To find out, she obtained the help of a girl rich in desire. "Go and embrace him," she told her, "and then ask him suddenly, 'What now?'" The girl called upon the monk, and without much ado caressed him, asking him what he was going to do about it. "An old tree grows on a cold rock in winter," replied the monk somewhat poetically. "Nowhere is there any warmth." The girl returned and related what he had said. "To think I fed that fellow for 20 years, exclaimed the old woman in anger. "He showed no consideration for your needs, no disposition to explain your condition. He need not have responded to passion, but at least he should have evidenced some compassion." She at once went to the hut of the monk and burned it down. Announcement. Tanzan wrote 60 postal cards on the last day of his life and asked an attendant to mail them. Then he passed away. The cards read, "I am departing from this world. This is my last announcement." Tanzan, July 27th, 1892. Great waves. In the early days of the Meiji era, there lived a well-known wrestler called Onami. Great waves. Onami was immensely strong and knew the art of wrestling. In his private bouts, he defeated even his teacher, but in public, he was so bashful that his own pupils threw him. Onami felt he should go to a Zen master for help. Hakuju, a wandering teacher, was stopping in a little temple nearby, so Onami went to see him and told him of his trouble. "Great Waves is your name," the teacher advised, "so stay in this temple tonight. Imagine that you are those billows. You are no longer a wrestler who is afraid. You are those huge waves sweeping everything before them, swallowing all in their path. Do this, and you will be the greatest wrestler in the land." The teacher retired. Onami sat in meditation, trying to imagine himself as waves. He thought of many different things. Then, gradually, he turned more and more to the feeling of the waves. As the night advanced, the waves became larger and larger. They swept away the flowers in their vases. Even the Buddha in the shrine was inundated. Before dawn, the temple was nothing but the ebb and flow of an immense sea. In the morning, the teacher found Onami meditating, a faint smile on his face. He patted the wrestler's shoulder. "Now nothing can disturb you," he said. "You are those waves. You will sweep everything before you." The same day, Onami entered the wrestling contests and won. After that, no one in Japan was able to defeat him. The moon cannot be stolen. Ryokan, a Zen master, lived the simplest kind of life in a little hut at the foot of a mountain. One evening, a thief visited the hut, only to discover there was nothing to steal. Ryokan returned and caught him. "You have come a long way to visit me," he told the prowler, "and you should not return empty-handed. Please take my clothes as a gift." The thief was bewildered. He took the clothes and slunk away. Ryokan sat naked, watching the moon. Poor fellow, I wish I could have given him this beautiful moon. The last poem of Hoshin. The Zen master Hoshin lived in China for many years. Then he returned to the northeastern part of Japan, where he taught his disciples. When he was getting very old, he told them a story he had heard in China. This is the story. One year, on the 25th of December, Tokufu, who was very old, said to his disciples, "I am not going to be alive next year, so you fellows should treat me well this year." The pupils thought he was joking, but since he was a great-hearted teacher, each of them in turn treated him to a feast on the succeeding days of the departing year. On the eve of the new year, Tokufu concluded, "You have been good to me. I shall leave tomorrow afternoon when the snow has stopped." The disciples laughed, thinking he was aging and talking nonsense, since the night was clear and without snow. But at midnight, snow began to fall, and the next day they did not find their teacher about. They went to the meditation hall. There he had passed on. Hoshin, who related this story, told his disciples. "It is not necessary for a Zen master to predict his passing, but if he really wishes to do so, he can." "Can you?" someone asked. "Yes," answered Hoshin. "I will show you what I can do 7 days from now." None of the disciples believed him, and most of them had even forgotten the conversation when Hoshin called them together. "7 days ago," he remarked, "I said I was going to leave you. It is customary to write a farewell poem, but I am neither a poet nor a calligrapher. Let one of you inscribe my last words." His followers thought he was joking, but one of them started to write. "Are you ready?" Hoshin asked. "Yes, sir," replied the writer. Then Hoshin dictated. "I came from brilliancy, and returned to brilliancy. What is this?" This was 1 line short of the customary 4, so the disciples said, "Master, we are 1 line short." Hoshin, with the roar of a conquering lion, shouted, "Ka!" and was gone. The story of Shunkai. The exquisite Shunkai, whose other name was Suzu, was compelled to marry against her wishes when she was quite young. Later, after this marriage had ended, she attended the university, where she studied philosophy. To see Shunkai was to fall in love with her. Moreover, wherever she went, she herself fell in love with others. Love was with her at the university, and afterwards, when philosophy did not satisfy her, and she visited the temple to learn about Zen, the Zen students fell in love with her. Shunkai's whole life was saturated with love. At last, in Kyoto, she became a real student of Zen. Her brothers in the sub-temple of Kenin praised her sincerity. One of them proved to be a congenial spirit and assisted her in the mastery of Zen. The habit of Kenin, Mokurai, silent thunder, was severe. He kept the precepts himself and expected the priests to do so. In modern Japan, whatever zeal these priests have lost for Buddhism, they seem to have gained for having wives. Mokurai used to take a broom and chase the women away when he found them in any of his temples, but the more wives he swept out, the more seemed to come back. In this particular temple, the wife of the head priest had become jealous of Shunkai's earnestness and beauty. Hearing the students praise her serious Zen made this wife squirm and itch. Finally, she spread a rumor about Shunkai and the young man who was her friend. As a consequence, he was expelled, and Shunkai was removed from the temple. I may have made the mistake of love, thought Shunkai, but the priest's wife shall not remain in the temple either, if my friend is to be treated so unjustly. Shunkai, the same night, with a can of kerosene, set fire to the 500-year-old temple and burned it to the ground. In the morning, she found herself in the hands of the police. A young lawyer became interested in her and endeavoured to make her sentence lighter. "Do not help me," she told him. "I might decide to do something else which will only imprison me again." At last, a sentence of 7 years was completed, and Sunkai was released from the prison, where the 60-year-old warden had become enamoured of her. But now everyone looked upon her as a jailbird. No one would associate with her. Even the Zen people, who were supposed to believe in enlightenment in this life and with this body, shunned her. Shunkai found that Zen was one thing, and the followers of Zen quite another. Her relatives would have nothing to do with her. She grew sick, poor, and weak. She met a Shinshu priest who taught her the name of the Buddha of love, and in this Shunkai found some solace and peace of mind. She passed away when she was still exquisitely beautiful and hardly 30 years old. She wrote her own story in a futile endeavour to support herself, and some of it she told to a woman writer. So it reached the Japanese people, those who rejected Shunkai, those who slandered her and hated her, now read of her life with tears of remorse. And that's the end for this time. Perhaps you'd like to explore meditation by sitting in the centre of a pentagram, drawn with the blood of a person of your choice, and chanting the Daimoku until you achieve transcendence. And remember, most importantly, the darkness is coming for you. You can run, but you cannot hide. Instead, why not welcome it in, cook it Mexican food, and play footsie with it under the table? Come on, who doesn't love fajitas and footsie, right? See you next time.